Hey gentlemen, I want to come to you today and bring you a story. I'll never forget I was 28 years old and the company was growing. We started getting into the multi-millions of dollars. And what that did is it created this scaling issue for me. And I would run into these issues where guys wouldn't show up for work. They would lie about their skill set. They would steal my tools, go to the pawn shop and sell them and quit. And I found myself getting angry. I would blame those guys. I would say they're bad men. There's no good guys out there. These guys are trash and all these different things. I would get very angry about it because I just wanted a fair exchange relationship. I pay you this amount of money. You show up to work, you do your job, I never miss a payroll, and I work my ass off to continue to put work in front of you. Every time I hired the wrong guy, it hurt me deeply in my business. And it dawned upon me, as angry as I was at those men, and as much as I wanted to blame them, that it would never serve me to blame them. They say the definition of insanity is when you do the same thing repeatedly expecting a different result. And so for me, I had to realize that if I didn't find a different way to find and hire men, then I would constantly be faced with that issue. And it also made me take on this massive accountability for any and everything that happened in the business. I'd always believed in accountability, but I don't think I understood the amount of accountability that was going to be needed. I win the work, I'll find the men, I put the systems together, boom, it should work, but it didn't. And it's like that in business, man. You did everything right and it still doesn't work, but that's not your ticket to get off the train of being responsible for it. And so that's when I kind of had a breakthrough moment that nobody was coming to save me. Only I could fix this problem, and I had to fix it through doing something massively different when it came to hiring men. The men that build America, that's a different breed of person, and it takes a different breed of strategy to find the kind of individual that's willing to do that at a high level. And so it was this massive amount of accountability that I had to take on that I did not feel it was even fair. But what I had to mature into was understanding that no matter what happened, that I was ultimately responsible, good or bad. I remember asking God, why this business? I don't think I truly knew the answer to that until the last few years. Going through that fire made me who I am today. Not just accountability, but ultimate accountability. Not only am I responsible for me, I'm responsible for you and the shit that you're supposed to do that even I didn't think in the beginning was my responsibility. Even if you do something wrong, it's my fault. That's how deep it gets when you start to lead more than just a couple people. Taking on accountability in that way changed my life. It matured me in ways I cannot even begin to tell you. Building any business is going to be something that's going to put a fire to your character and test you in a lot of ways. And it's going to force you to develop or die. And I think for that, we should all be grateful. Gentlemen, as I'm dealing with all these Instagram issues, it made me think. I appreciate you guys so much, and I want to make sure that I can stay in touch with you no matter what happens in this world, no matter where they cancel me, cancel my friends, shut down everything online that we have. But there's one place I know I can talk to you, and that's Telegram. So it would mean a lot to me if you would join my Telegram channel. I'm putting information in there every day, many times stuff that I don't even put on any of my social media platforms. So hit the link, join the Telegram, and I'll see you guys every day where we're dropping info that we're not putting anywhere else. I'll see you inside. I want to share a little story with you guys. Right after I joined the War Room, there was a young man that needed a place to stay, and he really helped me navigate through the War Room in the beginning because there's so much information coming to you through a fire hose. There's so much value. Sometimes it's hard to know where to start. So I moved him into my house. I allowed him to live there for quite some time, and I'll never forget a day when my business had already taken off, when I was starting to travel more than I'd ever traveled. I was beginning to do podcasts. I was starting to make money all over the place in all these different ways. And I thought to myself, what this young man is seeing in my life is a very unrealistic expectation of what it took for me to get there. There was a lot of things that I wish I had done better, a lot of mistakes that I made all along the path to get to the point where that young man was seeing me at that time. So I remember sitting him down in the living room and just making a blanket statement. And it was this: the man you see today is not a realistic expectation of the man that it took to get me here. So even now, when I have the ability and the skill set to build a business almost overnight, it looks a lot easier than it was to get the skill set itself. And so I just urged to him that what he was seeing from me, I was making look a lot easier than the effort it took for me to get in that position. You are gonna take blows. You're not gonna walk through this thing seamlessly, never getting hit by a punch, never losing money, never almost going bankrupt. It's gonna happen. And it doesn't make you less. It's just gonna help you understand and get hardened to the facts of the things that you have to do in order to succeed. Particularly for you guys that are struggling in your business right now, all I would urge you and tell you to do is understand that it does get darker before the dawn, and you must keep pushing through because you truly have no other choice. I just want to share that information with you, that it's not always been as easy as it is for me today. There are a lot of bumps I had to hit in the road to get there, and I would never want to misrepresent that.
How do you think traveling around the world has impacted you?
Well, it's cost me a few hangovers. It's been good because I've gotten to spend time with Tristan, for example. Me and Tristan will stay up all night drinking whiskey in front of a map and just talk about the timeline of history, how the Romans took a certain part of the area, and then the Turks and the Ottoman Empire, and being able to go through these places and seeing these civilizations. And we visited a citadel the other day, and then you really, once you're standing inside of it, you really understand, oh, that wall was there for a real reason. This is the history of this place. Why is there a castle on that hill? Who was coming through here trying to take over this land? It gives you a real insight into human psychology once you really start to dig into human history and really start to understand why people fought wars and what things were really over. And funny enough, if you look at it, the world is not so much different today than it was then. We're just using different weapons. We're just doing it different ways. And so understanding history helps you understand what's going on in the present. And I think that's been very insightful for me while I've been traveling. Also, it makes a lot of sense to me coming back to the States after being, let's say, away in Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Dubai, wherever. You start to see the patterns in people. In all civilizations, there's winners and there's losers. There's people struggling and there's people at the top of the totem pole. And I don't think I've ever been to a place where I could not recognize human nature to the most primal level. And I think traveling has been very good for me in that way because it helps you identify patterns. The world is big, but it's not quite as big as you thought it was. You can achieve really big things if you just understand the basics of primal laws, how people interact, how money's exchanged, why territories are made and set up in certain ways. It's really made me a better person, a better man, more worldly, more educated. I've gotten quite a lot from traveling the world.
So where would you put traveling in the list of priorities of a young man?
For a young man, I wouldn't say it's all that important to travel the world from the jump. I think for a young man, you want to get your base education, get your way to make money, get in shape, and then maybe go see a city. Get to London, get to LA. See how the world can be different from your small town. If you're in a small town, that's not the only world that's out there. Get to a place where you can see a kid making $10,000 a month on a laptop in a Starbucks in London. It changes your perspective on what's possible. That kid that's making that money on that laptop is gonna get up and take a piss just like you. He has the best online school, just like you could. So when you go back to your small town, cut a couple lawns, wash a couple cars, and next thing you know, you could be that kid in London. And when you're that kid in London, you get to see the big G roll through. And then you get another amount of consciousness that you may not have had previously. And what happens is you start getting these compounding boosts of consciousness and what's possible, what's possible, what's possible. Then you're in Miami and you see a guy on a yacht and you're like, you know what? I could do that. And it's not even all materialistic things. Maybe you see a guy who's living in Los Angeles and he's got a family and 5 kids and you're like, you know what? That is possible for me. I could live in Laguna Beach in a house over a mountain looking at the ocean. It's all real, man. And so I think traveling opens up your eyes to what's possible with more consciousness. And then it's you that gets to pick that high mountain to climb. And that's where all the happiness is anyway. So finding more consciousness, understanding what's possible and then going after it is a very healthy thing to do. And that's why I do think it's important for small trips, large cities, or places that can give you more consciousness, just to reset your goals. Because one of the worst things that can happen to you is for you to stay in that small town and reach all your goals that you had there and not feel fulfilled anymore and not have anywhere else to go. Just don't go backpacking through Europe. Don't want to stay in hostels and sleeping with women. That's going to be pretty purposeless. And you're not going to gain any consciousness from it. I often say and remember very intently being 24 years old and thinking that I was going to be a multi-millionaire by 30. But what you have to understand about back then is that I wasn't in a climate that fostered the ability to do that the way that it is actually today, with a lot of young guys being able to make so much money on the internet. When I think about that time in my life, I think about how many things that I did not know that I did not know. I remember getting 30 years old and thinking to myself that not only had I missed it, but I was also really, really struggling in my business at that time. And as much as I felt behind the 8 ball and how much I felt like I failed, and I saw that there were so many other people that had achieved that goal, I felt down on myself. But what I didn't understand is that I wasn't qualified to make the goals that I made for myself at 24 that I would have for myself at 30. Often, the goals that you make for yourself are not going to be a straight path, straight line. You are going to get hit in the face along the ride. And that is why it's so important that you act now, because the amount of time that you often think it's going to take you, it could cost you double the time. That's why I'm so intense about telling you guys to get to work at such a young age. What I didn't have was the business model with the explosiveness to give me the capability to reach my goals at that time. I had to build a much larger company than you would have to build to reach the goals that I met around 32 years old. And so when I sit here and I think about what's best for you and the guys that follow me, which I do appreciate dearly, I stress to you that picking the right business model is important, but also understanding that it's going to take you a little bit longer than you believe it will, because there's punches that you're going to take that you don't see coming. And so for that reason, I urge to you, go ahead and take that step. Join the best online school in the world. Start to build a business that can change your life and the life of people around you, because you just never know when you're going to hit it big. And the sooner you start, the sooner you'll be able to break through. I hope it helps. I'll see you guys inside.